Let's turn now to the big story of the day, which was of the week, which of course was the sacking of David Moyes. And the question I want to put to you, gentlemen, at the start was, did he deserve to be sacked?
Well, I wouldn't have appointed him in the first place, Bill. I thought he'd be out of his depth, and said so. I thought it needed somebody different. But if he got a 6-year contract from that club, then arguably he shouldn't have been sacked. The other big question, of course, is this is not a normal football club. They are a corporation. There are financial implications for failure that are, a massive toll on the people who run the club. So I didn't like the way it was done. I think Moyes is a good manager, a good coach at a certain level in the game. And I think the more I read about it today and Alex Ferguson's involvement in it, I think I remember a speech Ferguson made on the last day of last season, his last day as manager, in which he demanded loyalty through good times and bad, as he himself had, and he demanded that from the Manchester United fans very loudly into a microphone. Well, Moyes certainly hasn't had it.
No, but what I'd like to know... Huh?
I would have sacked him.
You would have sacked him, yeah. Now, I want to ask you, Liam, what was this about? Was it about a player revolt that he had lost the team? Was it about big business saying we can't afford to be out of the Champions League? What was it about? Or is he simply not good enough?
No, well, I don't know what was going on the training ground and what his relationship was with the players. But by all accounts, there was real problems there. But it was big business, there's no doubt about that. They'd been taking into the Glazer family, and the chief executive would be taking into account they're not in the Champions League. If we keep him, we give him the money, is he going to get us into the Champions League next year? And I think that's where they fell back on the players. Let's sound out the players. See, Brendan Rodgers last year finished 7th in the league.
That's right.
Yeah, he got off to a horrible start. People said he wasn't up to the job. But I have a feeling what went on at Liverpool, where the players said, we like this manager, we believe in this manager, and it showed this season. I don't think that was the case at Old Trafford. I think the players were probably making their feelings known that they didn't want Moyes any longer. And player power and business ruled the day.
What about that, John? Player power?
Yeah, I'd say there was a lot of that going on, Bill. Manchester United are one of the biggest clubs in the world. And I think the setup there was that, first of all, I think Alex Ferguson should have disappeared for 12 months to get out of the way. Because there's a lot of talk that players went to see him in recent times. And I believe that to be true. And I think Ferguson, if he was really doing his job, should have turned those players away and said, I don't want to speak to you, I don't want to know about the problems. You go and talk to the manager if you want to talk. I don't think that happened. So I think that led to his ultimate downfall, Moyes.
So he, in other words, was destabilising?
Well, I think the players, you see, Manchester United is a special club, especially in recent times. They've always been a special club, but in recent times, they've had players who have been there for a long time. If you look at the backroom staff, now Scholes is coming into it now, Butt's there, Giggs is there,
Phil Neville
is there. They're all players that were brought up with Alex Ferguson, right? So no matter who comes in, is not going to be doing the job the way Alex Ferguson did it, right? So there was a lot of manoeuvring for Moyes to win those players over. And then you had Ferdinand tweeting all over the place. He should have been chucked out last year. So he would have been a leader in the thing that Moyes is not doing it like we used to do it. So
he said that publicly, didn't he?
Did,
in relation to the team.
And it's easy for players to gripe on that, Bill. And I think I would agree with Eamon. I think he probably wasn't up to the job anyway. I don't think he was big enough to handle it. But I don't think he got a fair chance to do what needed to be done.
Yeah, and but hang on a second now, John. If you're out of the Champions League, which is a fact, and you have to spend somewhere in the region of 200 million on new players to make you a Champions League team again, would you have given him 200 million?
I'm not saying I don't think I would, Bill.
But there was no alternative then but to get
well,
him, was there?
Well, there was an alternative to stick with him and give him the money or chuck him out, which he did. But I think there was a lot going on behind the scenes, Bill, that it led to a business decision, but also in Moyes' case, I think he was undermined.
Within the club. And it was interesting in tonight's statement, he makes no reference whatever to the players.
Now, I think
and Roy Keane said they should be ashamed of themselves.
Well, I think there was a lot going on within the club, and I feel sorry for him. And like the lads, I think the way Manchester United have handled this, they're supposed to be one of the biggest clubs in the world. They've handled it outrageously badly. Because this is a decent individual. Okay, he hasn't done a good job, but he should have been treated in a better way. The leaking that went on Bill, a day before he was even called in. When he was going to get the job, initially when they were appointing him, he went to New York to see the Glaziers. I think the Glaziers, or some representation from the Glaziers, should have come and seen him before it was announced in the way it was.
There's one huge question. How big a crisis is this for Man U? And can they come back and, to former glory, as it were?
The answer is it's a massive crisis, Bill. And I'm just going to give you some figures from this year's annual report. And here's the numbers. It's going to cost them 60 million not to be in the Champions League in one way or the other. They showed an operating profit of 75 million euros on borrowings of 435 million. And the interest on those borrowings are 86 million euros. So 86 million euros goes out the door before they can look at
new
paying.
players. Yeah.
And this is a leveraged buyout that the Glazers conducted 8 years ago. And they are taking lots of money out of that club. So, will 200 million do the job? No. They botched the transition from one man. There's almost a golden rule in business, if this is business. You don't let the guy who's walking out the door pick his successor.
Yeah.
Now, they botched what they've done yesterday. It's shameful that David Moyes had to turn up at the training ground at 5 a.m. in the morning and wait for the chief executive, having read all this stuff that we've all been reading about his own job before it happened. But, Bill, they have very few players of real quality. Okay. And they won't be back on the scene for 3, 4, 5 years.
Really?
In the Champions League.
Well, I think it makes good viewing, to be honest, being an Arsenal man and having had to suffer for the last 25 years, Manchester United winning year in, year out. It's good to have a crisis over there. Let's see how they handle it. It's not easy to handle these situations. I, like John, thought the leaking to the newspapers about Moyes' position over the week was orchestrated by the people in power at Old Trafford, and I thought that was terrible.
It's very disillusioning, really, isn't it?
A big club like Manchester United shouldn't have to do things like that. But, the players are still there. The ones that maybe were complaining about Moyes are still there. So it's going to be great to see who comes in and sorts the situation out.
And who do you suggest then will come in? Who do you suggest would be manager? I know in the short term we've...
Well, I think Van Gaal is the 4 to 6 favourite. He's odds-on favourite to come in.
But he's a tough guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a tough guy, but he's very arrogant. He can rub people up the wrong way, but he has the pedigree. He's been there and done it. He has the T-shirt.
He'll put manners on some of the dissidents.
And he's available. He's available. He's going to be available after the World Cup in
mid-July.
I know, but he's available.
Yeah.
Who else are they going to get?
All right. Who else?
Well, I think there'll be other people. Ancelotti, for example, if he doesn't win the Champions League, having failed to win La Liga, then he could be on his bike. I'd like to see Ancelotti as a contender. I would go for Simeone because he's 43. He's got a great pedigree.
Doesn't speak English though, which is a big problem.
That is
an
issue. Yes,
and he's too defensive, Eamon. He's too defensive.
I don't think he is. Actually.
Manchester United got Moyes, and Moyes didn't fit the way Manchester United played football, and they need to return to that.
Correct.
But you see, there's not a lot of people out there. When you really think about it, Mourinho doesn't play the kind of football.
Now, one of the things that's been very interesting in the newspapers in the last few days that Ancelotti and Van Gaal, I think it is. According to the newspapers, he wants Roy Keane as his number 2.
Who?
Van Gaal, if he gets the job.
Well, you
it's
see,
a good way of not getting the job, I think.
I don't think
the
that's
case.
going to happen.
I think he's entitled to have whoever he wants. Maybe he doesn't maybe it would be a good move. Who knows? I don't know. But I think he's
You wouldn't dismiss it out of hand, would you?
No, I wouldn't. But it's a bit premature to be making statements like that at this particular stage. Gus Hiddink might be available. Bill. Gus Hiddink has been a really top-class manager over the years, and I think he'd be big enough to handle it. But I think once you lose a manager like Alex Ferguson, there's very few really great managers out there, Bill. Now, when you have one, you have to cherish it. If you go back to Liverpool's situation, Liverpool dominated, same as Manchester, maybe a bit longer than Manchester, for 30 years. And they changed managers from within, and it worked. But it's very, very difficult to continue doing it. And it's very difficult for anybody to take over from Alex Ferguson.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like to put my life on picking a successful manager. I don't think you're allowed to
Can I
either.
just...
The fact of the matter, Bill, about Manchester United is they really don't have any good players. The youth system hasn't worked, and they don't have enough money. PSG, Monaco, Chelsea, Manchester City, Barcelona and Real Madrid will outbid them in wages and for players. They won't get the players.
Well, we'll see.
I'll tell you
Liverpool,
what might happen,
by the way,
Bill.
built their
I'll tell
team.
you what might happen. They might sell out.
They might.
You know, they've made the money from them. Now they've made the money and they're taking a lot of money, as Ian said.
Well, Man U have come back from worse than this, I think, in the past. And also, if you look at Liverpool, in 18 months they've transformed the club.
Yeah, but Bill,
and can I just to finish up? Can I quote?
It took them 20 odd years to do that. Liverpool. They didn't do it in 18.
Under the manager,
They haven't done it in 18
under
months.
the current manager. Can I quote Ferguson on his book tour? When a club sacks a manager, there is no evidence that it works, but there is hard evidence that sacking your manager does not work.
Well, Brendan Rodgers has proved that, and oddly enough, John, just to disagree with you for the second time tonight, Brendan Rodgers has done it in 18 months without spending very much money at all. Now, they may be only champions for a year, and they need more players, but it can be done.
So you're
right in the last.
All right, lads, we have to leave it at that.
I know that.
It's taken 20 odd years to get it right.
That's it for tonight. I'd like to thank John, Liam and Eamon for being with me this evening. We'll be back next Wednesday for the second leg of Atletico Madrid against Chelsea, with the score currently 0-0. Join us at 7:30 for that.